Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome in to Morning in the Valley. It is September the 15th. I'm Jeff Bidwell. Glad you are with us today. Today feels like a little bit of a milestone day, as when we got under 100 days until the start of the season, it was like, oh, okay, we're down into we're within arm's reach. And now I look and we're at 49 days. So now we've cut that in half, and countdown really feels like it is on. 7 weeks from today, the 2025-26 season will start, and obviously we all cannot wait. Coming up in just a couple of moments, we will have my conversation from a couple of days ago. Got a chance to catch up with Rob Dauster from the Field of 68. He and his team hosting 6 games on November the 3rd. 3 in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 3 in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Drake, Bradley, and Murray State will be a part of that Field of 68 opening day marathon. So we'll talk with Rob about just everything that goes into putting on an event like that, and then some 30,000 feet views of the game, the entire game of college basketball, but also how the mid-majors and our folks in the Missouri Valley sort of fit into that view right now with the sport that is certainly in some flux right now as it moves forward. So we will talk with Rob Dauster coming up in just a couple of moments. If you haven't done so, please head to YouTube and subscribe for free to our program, Morning in the Valley. All the past shows and interview clips and so on are there. And so it will help us immensely if you can head on over there and click the little subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it. Okay, we start this Monday morning, sort of a slow news weekend. I don't know, everybody was locked into college football all over the place or what. Just not a lot of news, which is okay sometimes for old Uncle Jeff. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes we can slow the news wheel down just a little bit. But we did get some recruiting news out of Cedar Falls, Iowa, as head coach Tanya Warren has picked up a recruit for the 2026 class. Her name is Harper Wettstein. She is from Troy, Kansas, a 5'9" guard. This was a relatively brief courtship between Miss Wettstein and the UNI coaching staff. The scholarship offer came in on July the 24th. And I think it is safe to say that Harper is a little bit of a late bloomer, but she is blooming for sure. When you just go back and you look at her offers over the last 6-8 months, and it started out with some NAIA offers, some JUCO offers, some D2 offers. It got to Western Illinois back in early July, offered at the Division I level, and then Northern Iowa came in after that. And so it's obviously she has really come on this summer, and the depth and the scope of her offer sheet has grown. And now Northern Iowa came in, and it's certainly the best offer she has, and she's not messing around. She's going to jump right on that and join the UNI program. So 5'9" guard out of Troy, Kansas, about 4 hours away from Cedar Falls, and she will be signing here. And that's the thing. We're 6 weeks away from signing day already. It's like can't get to the season fast enough, but we got signing day coming soon as well. But Harper Wettstein will be a UNI Panther. Scheduling news from Belmont. We had been waiting. This was kind of the last piece to their puzzle. We knew they were going to the Bahamas and the Baha Mar Hoops facility. That's where Murray State's men were at last month when they did their exhibition tour. But the Belmont ladies have found out their opponents, and they're going to open things up. This is another just part of the absolute grinder of a schedule that Belmont has this year. And we knew going down to this event was going to just add to those challenges. The part about Baja was they only had 7 teams, and they were trying to find an eighth. We knew we had Ohio State and Belmont and West Virginia and Minnesota and South Florida and Alabama and Harvard. Who was going to be 8th? Well, finally, they were able to track down McNeese. And so McNeese is the 8th team, and there's a potential that Belmont will play McNeese, but they will open up with Ohio State. And going off metrics from last year, this is quad 1, exclamation point, highlighted, underscored type of game. Ohio State was 18th in the net last year. Now, depending what happens on this game, with this first game, Belmont will either play West Virginia, who was 13th in the net last year, or it will be McNeese. And McNeese came in at 325. So McNeese, unless there has been some vast improvement, is going to be swimming in some deep, deep, deep waters in the Bahamas with the teams they are playing. So from a metric standpoint, boy, you'd sure love to be able to pick off Ohio State and then, likely then get another crack at another quad one game against West Virginia. But that is what Belmont will be facing in November. And the schedule is now not only complete, but we now have opponents all the way across the board. And that is as good of a non-conference schedule as there is in America that Bart Brooks has been able to put together this year. And this just an exclamation point. And they'll do it in a little sunshine down in the Bahamas for sure as well. So they will lead things off with the Buckeyes from Ohio State. All right. Let us get to my conversation now with Rob Dauster from the Field of 68. We got a chance, he and his team traveling across the Midwest, doing some preseason visits. And I know they've been at Indiana, they've been at Purdue. They were bouncing around a little bit. We were able to catch him before he got on the road. We were hoping to have him a couple of weeks prior. He had a little communication went haywire, wires crossed between he and I, but able to track him down last Thursday. I believe it was last Thursday. The days have all run together, but we were able to catch up with him. And I just, from an administrative standpoint, wanted to pick his brain a little bit about, how does the Field of 68, how did this work? Because again, this is a progression of what they have done at the Field of 68, this opening day marathon from, a couple of years ago, they had the opening day. It was like the tip off where you had Florida Atlantic and Charleston and Liberty. And they're in year 3 now of doing a round robin where one of those schools hosts the event. And then last year they had the showcase out in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They put on 3 games. Southern Illinois played out there in the season opener. And now this year they have gone to 6 games across 2 different sites. And it's a great event. It's a great showcase event. It is, it's on their X page. It's on their YouTube page. And it's just for the first day and for the people that have just been jonesing to get some college basketball. And they're going to get it. And they're going to get it starting early in the morning. And it's going to go all day long. And it's just it's a great event. It's a great showcase for the mid-majors. And that's a lot about what we talked about. So without further ado, we'll let me stop yapping and let's bring in the founder of the Field of 68. Here is Rob Dauster. Rob Dauster, Field of 68. When you started this little venture 5 years ago, and congratulations on the anniversary, could you ever have imagined there would be a Field of 68 tip-off, let alone a showcase, let alone a marathon?
No, not at all. None of this stuff is stuff that we really planned out at the start, right? Like when this began, what we were basically trying to do was build a network of podcasts that had former players, hosting a pod about the team that they played for, interviewing coaches, interviewing old teammates, telling back in the day stories. This all started during COVID, during lockdown, when everybody, and their brother started a podcast. So we were just trying to figure out, a way to be able to kind of find something that would cut through the noise and get people interested when they didn't really have anything else going on. It was 5 years ago, which feels like a long time, but I think all of us kind of remember what it was like when you're just stuck in your house and you can't go out and you can't do anything. So we started that, and then what we found was the most views we would get and the most interactions we would get with anything that we did was like instant reaction stuff, right? Like I vividly remember it was me, Fanta, and a guy named Deshaun Butler who played for West Virginia. What we would do is after every tournament game during the COVID tournament in 2021 was we would just get on and it would be me sitting there producing on my own, basically like what you're kind of doing here.
Yeah.
We would react to what we just saw. I remember we had 150 people watching us live after Jalen Suggs hit that half court shot to beat UCLA in the Final Four in 2021. And I was like, oh, this is unbelievable. Look how many people are here. And that kind of set us off on this idea of doing After Dark, right? Like if this is what people want, why don't we just lean into this? And so that first year in 21-22, Field of 68 After Dark kind of took off. And from there, it was just like, all right, well, what's the next thing that we can do? What's the next insane idea that we can kind of pull off? And, I give I give Goodman a lot of credit. Like he has a lot of ideas. Yeah. One day, I have them all written down. One day I'm going to write a book about all the ideas that Goodman has had that we just did not even consider doing because it was absolutely insane. So, no, I never would have expected that this is what it would have turned into when we started this thing 5 years ago.
Where, I guess maybe what's the biggest challenge of being a promoter and a tournament manager, and one that is certainly the idea, the germ maybe has now expanded to beyond what you ever could have imagined a couple of years ago.
It's getting teams to play, right? Like
Yeah.
I have so much more sympathy for the people that are in charge for scheduling for these schools and these programs than I did before. Like I never really registered to me how difficult it was to kind of put together a schedule for college basketball season until you start trying to put together schedules for college basketball season, right? Like there's teams want to play certain opponents on certain dates. There's going to be some programs that want to make sure that they get a guaranteed win the first time that the first game that they play. There's other teams that are going to say, hey, listen, we don't want to play anybody that doesn't have an average net and an average KenPom of top 75 over the course of the last 4 seasons. There's going to be programs that say we want to play, we'll play anybody, but we're not going to play that coach because he plays a certain style of defense that we're not interested in trying to deal with. We're the only way that we play in your event is if someone is going to pay us $100,000 to our NIL collective to be able to go and play in your tournament. So it's the way that all of this stuff is kind of shaking out. It's just it's crazy. It is an absolute whirlwind. And when I tell you that we are already getting calls from people being like, listen, we have an extra game that we're going to have to fill in the 26-27 season. Like what do we have to do to be able to get in with you guys? It's a mess, man. Whoever, if you ever run into somebody that's in charge of scheduling of a Division I basketball program, buy them a drink, man, because I promise you they need it more than you do.
Talking to Brian Wardle at Bradley a couple months ago, he said when he saw this event a year ago and sort of the next step when it was the showcase, he's like, man, I want to be a part of that. And to your point, there more people are now interested. What's the process for you in terms of trying to fill the field? Is there a pool of folks that reach out and say, hey, we want to be in it, and then you're parsing whether or not you want them, or is it really, man, we've got to go get everybody and make all those calls?
So this year it was kind of when it was more trying to get people involved here. Like we had a list of, you look at all the best mid-major programs in college basketball and you kind of circle them and say, all right, these are the 25 teams or so that we think would make the most sense to be able to partake in something like this. And you reach out to them and you see who wants to play, who has a spot on their schedule. There are conferences that on that first day of the season have conference, they're playing different leagues already. Like they have stuff already scheduled in there contractually. There are programs that can't play in certain venues that will not get picked up by ESPN because of the way that the contract with their leagues are written, the broadcasting contracts. So that kind of limits you a little bit, but it's mostly just find out who the good teams are, who are the coaches that we have good relationships with, where does it make sense for them to go and try to play. Like the stuff that we're doing in Rock Hill, Winthrop is in Rock Hill. And Queens is in Charlotte, which is 20 minutes away from Rock Hill. So the first game of the season at 8 a.m. is going to be 2 teams that can drive there and don't really have to worry about staying overnight anywhere. They don't have to worry about flights. All they got to worry about is, who's buying the coffee in the morning before the game. With Sioux Falls, with this event up here, it actually worked out perfectly. We got Ryan Miller, obviously, coming home. We got Eric Henderson coming back to South Dakota, and we got the local team, the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, playing 45 minutes from their campus. So, some of that stuff is kind of plays into it as well, right? It's important to touch on some of the storylines that matter. For example, last year we brought in Robbie Avila, who was one of the biggest name college basketball stars for all of the people that live and die in these college basketball streets on the internet. So Finding things like that, man. Chris Mack's first game back into coaching was one of the things that we had last year. Scott Nagy coming back to South Dakota after leaving South Dakota State in, what was that, 2019? So finding storylines like that you can kind of tie in is something that matters as well. Like let's call it what it is, right? This is fun. This is something where college basketball junkies are going to be all in, right? We all remember the ESPN marathon, the 24-hour deal. And that stuff it's great for a very niche set of fans in a already niche sport, right? It's not going to cut through the noise of what happens with I think it's Florida is playing BYU at 9:00 on the opening night of the season, right? Like we're probably not going to do better numbers than Florida, the national champions, playing BYU and Edgy DeBonsa in the first game of the season in Las Vegas, right? But what you need to be able to do is find storylines that will interest people and games that are good enough where you can hope that by the end of it, it's going to be something close, right? Like last year, we had a buzzer beater that was the number one play on Sports Center when Ante Brozovic in a 2 overtime game in his home gym hit a three to win 116 to 114 in double OT over FIU, and they stormed the court. It was the number one play on Sports Center, which is like, that's what you kind of got to hope for, right? You got to hope for that one moment. If you put together two good teams that are kind of on the same level, you're going to put yourself in the best position to try to get that moment. So that's a long-winded way of saying all of this stuff. You just got to be lucky, man. You just got to hope that it works out your way.
A branding green for the field of 68 to get that
Yes,
number one spot. Look, in this era now of the players era and all of the big boys playing each other and so on, and they pay your mortgage in the end when you're on at night talking about North Carolina and Duke and so on. But this is a mid-major lane, and you're getting all these quality mid-majors to play. Is there a widening lane for you, a wider lane for you and your team to go really hammer these mid-majors and give them the showcase and the marathon, if you will, when the other eyeballs are not interested in it?
Well, the thing about it is there's so many great stories in college basketball and so many fun teams and so many little pockets of fan bases that may not, like, the Murray State's fan base is not going to be as big as Kentucky's fan base, but you can't tell me the Racer fans don't care about Murray State basketball at the same level that Kentucky cares about Kentucky basketball, right? And the difficult part is we want to keep everything free. Like, we don't want to put stuff behind a paywall, but in order to do that, you have to have the largest number of views to be able to sell sponsors. Like, it is what it is. That's how this business stays afloat. And so you have to cater to the big audiences and the big brands and the big fan bases and the things that are going to matter nationally on a bigger scale. But it doesn't mean that there's not those passionate fans that care about it. So, like, we try to do everything we can to incorporate mid-major basketball into what we do. Like, for example, we're doing this opening day marathon next year. Hopefully we're going to have it be 24 hours and extend it another 3 games. We'll see if we can actually pull that off. I'm the idea of having to call basketball games for 24 straight hours is not, I need my beauty rest. But so we're doing that. We are doing, I believe it's now 13 mid-major conference media days. Some of them are going to be flying in for it. Some are, like the Missouri Valley, we were going to end up doing remotely. We have a podcast that is specifically dedicated to mid-major basketball. We will be doing our own mid-major top 25. We'll be getting all of these different coaches on. We'll be highlighting some of the storylines. The plan right now is to have that run Thursday at 5 p.m. every week throughout the college basketball season. So we're doing what we can to try to build on that. It's just a lot of that ends up being, I mean, I'm sure you experienced this too. Like, a lot of it ends up being a labor of love. Right. Nobody's going to get rich putting together a podcast on mid-major basketball, but it's stuff. I think there's enough people that care about it that it's something that deserves to have that level of attention. Does that make sense? Like,
100%.
It's you have to really, really love it to make it be good. And if it's not good, it's very easy for a Murray State fan to see who's just kind of spewing BS and who is actually paying attention to mid-major hoops.
Yeah, I think as mid-major fans, and look, I've heard Gary Parrish talk about this, where, if a mid-major gets number 25 in the AP poll, number 25 in the AP poll doesn't matter to a lot of programs in the country, but to a Murray State, to a Bradley, to a whoever, it's like it is all encompassing at that point that you're being recognized. And your point, you get these flash in these in moments of, whether it's Indiana State and Robbie Avila a couple of years ago, whether it's Florida Atlantic making a Final Four run, that's when the Nationals will pay attention. And you just hope that, hey, thanks for coming to the party. We've been here all along, but it's nice to have that. You're on YouTube, on X with these games.
Real quick on that, because I think the important thing is for when you're doing this college basketball at a national scale, the important thing is to be able to know enough and be in a position for when that story pops, wherever it ends up being, whether it's Murray State, whether it's Grand Canyon, whether it's FAU, whether it's San Diego, like whoever it ends up being, to be in a position where you are the one that people nationally can go to and know that, hey, these guys know what they're talking about. They're not just looking at a box score and seeing a headline or reading names, that they've been watching, they've been paying attention. And that's part of why we want to make sure that we put in the effort to cover the sport beyond just the Power 5 conferences, right? Because I think it's important to not, like, it can't just be lip service, man. Like, it just can't. Missouri Valley fans are going to know who is actually paying attention and who was just jumping in February and pretending like they know that Belmont was a team that was going to go 16-2 in the Valley, right? Pretending like the Summit League fans are going to know who was watching and who was surprised that Omaha made the run that they made last year. So things like that. So it's important to be able to put in the effort. And honestly, the best way to do that is to do these media days. You know why? Because there's 10 new guys on all these different rosters. And I got to go spend 15 minutes talking to Ryan Miller about his roster before the season starts. So like, I'm already locked in. I have to know about all of those teams to be able to put on a 4.5 hour show. No breaks. 4.5 hours straight talking to nothing but Summit League coaches and Missouri Valley coaches. You got to do your homework. You got to know what you're talking about. And once you kind of get that groundwork, then you're going to know, okay, this is why I have to pay attention to this team because they got this star, and this is the guy that you want to pay attention to in this conference because he's awesome and no one's paying attention to him. And this is the Division II guy that this school brought in that everyone thinks is going to be the next guy to make the big leap. So that part of it is like, those teams deserve that coverage. And part of it for me is like, this is how I get prepared to be able to know what I'm talking about when it comes to the 363 Division I teams that there are. Is it 363, 60? I don't even know. 360, whatever. Right. A lot. There's a lot of teams in college basketball. And this is how you get ready for the season, doing things like this.
And that's, to be fair to you guys, and really all national guys, to your point, there's 360 teams. There's a lot going on. Any given Saturday, you got 150 games. There's only so much bandwidth you guys can absorb. So
that's why you got to have 11 different screens going. You got to have the laptop. You got to have the desktop. You got to have the 2 TVs. You got to have the phone. You got to have YouTube TV with the 4 different screens go. Like you got to be able, you can give yourself ADD very, very quickly.
Got to make sure you take that ADD medicine before the games start. You guys broadcast these marathon games, keep calling it showcase, marathon games on YouTube and on X. Is there a TV deal in the future? Is that monetarily worth your trouble? I know I'm sure would love a check from somebody to come in to help out the company, but where's your like big fat dream with all of this?
The dream would be to put together the 24-hour marathon and have it on nothing but the field of 68. Mm-hmm. The reality is that if we continue to grow and continue to add and continue to develop different places where this is going to be, like, production costs are not cheap when it comes to broadcasting a game at a certain level. So I don't think it's impossible that one day we might end up having, I don't know, the first 7 games of the marathon on the field of 68 and then have a nightcap where it's like 2 big boy battles back to back that end up being part of the marathon that get picked up by a bigger broadcasting network. Like the real complicating factor with a lot of this stuff is if we were to do, let's just say, like a Duke game in Charlotte, that is in the ACC's footprint, which means that ESPN would have the rights to be able to pick up that game regardless of who is putting together the matchup. So there are not very many places that don't have some kind of connection to a conference, right? And there's not very many places where you could have the connection to the conference and have a game or a team that would be good enough to be able to draw fans. And these venues that host these events, they make money by getting people into the building. It's not profitable for them to have a game where there's nobody in the building because they can't sell $11 beers and they can't sell, $200 courtside seats or whatever it ends up being. So that's the difficult part about putting these together. So the short answer is I don't really know where it's going to take us, and the easy way to kind of phrase it is whatever ends up happening, I promise you, we're going to do our best to make sure that it is as good as it could possibly be and as much fun as it could possibly be. And if it means that we're going to do 10 games on the Field of 68 YouTube channel, I got to call every single one of them, then I'm in, man. I'm in. I love it.
Last question before I let you get out of here, sort of a 30,000-foot question for the sport and for the mid-major folks that I know a lot of folks, opponents to expansion beyond 68. Lord knows you don't need to rename your company if we get a Field of 72 or a Field of 76, but should mid-majors be concerned?
Do people know how much these cost? Like, come on.
That's why I don't have one yet. Yes, it's not cheap.
They're not cheap.
Should there be a concern in your eyes for mid-majors about diminishing access to the NCAA tournament?
I mean,
in its current,
all we've seen from power conference leagues is that they are trying to consolidate as much money as possible. And if that means that they're going to break off and they can sell their own broadcasting rights for a tournament that has 68 high major programs and they think people would watch, I think what we've seen is that a lot of these power conferences, that's something that they would be incentivized to do. One of the thing that frustrates me more than anything else when it comes to college athletics is that it feels like the people that make decisions on this stuff are not actually college sports fans. If they were college sports fans, they wouldn't have blown up the Pac-12. Maryland would still be playing Duke in basketball. UConn would still be in the same conference as Syracuse in basketball, right? We would still be getting Texas A&M and Texas games in the Big 12, not in the SEC, right? We would still have a league where Oregon and Oregon State can play their rivalry games, and Washington State can play their rivalry games, and it means something more than just a non-conference game or an exhibition game that you have to put together. And if having the Pac-12 get blown to bits the way that it got blown to bits isn't sign enough that the people making these decisions are more worried about dollars than they are about what the fans actually want to see, I mean, who knows? It is not the most comforting position to be in if I was a mid-major fan, which is part of the reason why we want to be able to promote it. Like, This, people care about this. We can't just, leave them to the curb. So I don't know. But once everyone's trying to chase the highest dollar figure is not the,
well, there's Rob Dauster. Final seconds there cut off, but the main point stands. In the end, to his point, it's all money. It's all money. It's always been money. That's been the whole thing. It has, and that will ultimately drive whether the tournament expands. Is if the TV folks want to pump more revenue in, then they'll go. That's that. I don't know how much appetite they have right now. I say have the power brokers in the Big Ten and the SEC and so on. If we're going to expand, but the pie of money is not going to get any bigger. So the slices, instead of 68 slices, you're going to have 72 slices or 76 that, I don't know that they'll, and if that does happen, that is all the more reason that they're like, well, we just want more of our teams in, which makes it even tougher for the folks in the mid-major world. But glad we're able to catch up with Rob. May catch up with him again in the next 48 days before we get rolling in the Field of 68 marathon in both Rock Hill, South Carolina, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But very much looking forward to that. Very much thank him for his time the other day. One other thing before we get out of here today, our friend Michael Admire, the radio voice of Drake men's basketball, also really just runs their whole internal media outlet over there and does just an outstanding job, does the Hometown Hoops podcast, and he has done a great job of showcasing and highlighting the new players, new coaches on Eric Henderson's staff there at Drake. Obviously a new era of Drake Bulldog basketball again, after Ben McCollum introduced a new era of Drake Bulldog basketball just a year ago, and things all went very swimmingly for Drake a year ago, and Eric Henderson trying to do it again as the Bulldog program. Been to the NCAA tournament 3 years in a row, trying to make it 4. And maybe some outside prognostication, not super high on Drake. We'll get to that in a moment. But here's Eric Henderson sitting down with Michael Admire on the Hometown Hoops podcast. Just a little blip from that interview, but I think it shows sort of the optimism that Drake fans should have internally about what's coming up this season.
The thing that really stands out about this roster is versatility. We've got some great size. We've got athleticism. I think our guard play is very strong. We were able to go get guys with some experience. When we looked at the teams with the most success in the Missouri Valley Conference, they were on the older side, right? They had guys that were experienced. And so we wanted to make sure we were putting ourselves in a position to have success right away. And we're excited about that. We can put lineups out there that are as big as Drake's had in a long time. I know that. But we also wanted to make sure we put ourselves in a position to be one of the better defensive teams in the league. And then, one of the better rebounding teams in the league, because that's what we feel like you have to have to win championships.
So there was Eric Henderson. And look, he's going to be confident that that's his job. He's sort of the forward-facing CEO of that program. But I have seen enough, no matter who the head coach was, that it kind of becomes one of those deals where I'm going to have to see it not work before I'm willing to just go, okay, they're done. They have just shown that it's going to work. And you reach a point where the program, you hate to say it doesn't matter who's running it, but obviously with Brian Harden, the athletic director, and the hires he has made, those hires have worked and they continue to work. And you just almost have to just give faith to the fact that this is going to work as well until it doesn't. And that's why the Blue Ribbon yearbook putting Drake 7th, and you're just like, we just saw this a year ago. I get that you're not going to throw him at 1 or 2. But to not have them even in the top 4, almost just from, I was kind of shocked. 7, I would like the bottom half of the league. I was shocked by that, but it will all play itself out, and we will find out soon enough how the Bulldogs will roll. The Missouri Valley Conference preseason poll ballots are all due on Friday, so hopefully a week from today, maybe a week. Next Tuesday, Wednesday, they will put out those the preseason poll, and then hopefully right behind it, maybe with it. Boy, I'd love to get them today, tomorrow as well. Can we get that? Can we get that conference schedule as well? It's about that time. We're chomping at the bit, 7 weeks away from the start of the season, and ready to get it. But it is coming down the pike. Again, one final reminder: last year it was September the 20th, so we are not there yet. That's Saturday, so they're not late yet by any means in getting that out from the conference office, but everybody is they're ready, and we'll bring that to you as soon as we can. All right, that does it for this morning's edition of Morning in the Valley. Thanks to Rob Dauster from the Field of 68 for being with us. Courtney Boyd, the women's basketball coach at Valparaiso, will join us on Wednesday. We talked with her just a couple of weeks after she got the job. Now that she's been in that seat for almost 6 months, we'll see how things have changed for her as she gets ready for her first year leading the Beacons program. So we'll talk with Coach Boyd on Wednesday. If you haven't done so already, please zip on over to YouTube and subscribe for free to Morning in the Valley. Helps us out immensely, gets us out in front of some more Missouri Valley Conference loving folks. All the past shows, interview clips, and so on are there. So appreciate your support. Continued support here of Morning in the Valley. All right, that does it for today. We'll see you on Wednesday morning, 9 a.m., right here on Morning in the Valley.